Hey guys, Taylor here. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a PBX or private branch exchange, and all this really is a phone system. It can be for an office, a small business, even a large business. So the way that this particular PBX works is, and you can set these up in a lot of different manners, but kind of a standard way that this works is, for example, we're going to have 3 phones. Each phone has an extension, 1, 2, and 3. Now in this case, each of these phones actually has a 10-digit unique number that, just like a regular phone number, that can be called and the phone will ring. But there's what I'm calling a main company phone number that when you call that number, you're prompted to enter your party's extension, and each of these phone is also assigned a particular extension. This is 1, 2, and 3, so I'll go ahead and show you. So here I'm calling what I'm calling the main business phone. And
thanks for calling my company.
And there's a voice prompt. This is a machine voice prompt, but you can upload your own. So it's just asking me to enter my extension. I'm going to press 2, and this particular phone should ring because it's extension 2. So hello. So that's basically how that works. The other cool thing about this is, since it's a private branch exchange, we can pick up, say, for example, this first extension 1 and just press 2. And it will dial this phone. And that call is entirely, hello, hey. So that call is entirely, it doesn't travel through the traditional phone line, so it's entirely free, which is really nice, especially for big businesses who might make a lot of calls internally. And any of these phones can also dial out. And a lot of PBX require you to dial like 5 or something before you dial out. But this doesn't require that. You can just dial out. Hello. You can just dial the number, and as long as it's not an internal extension, which unless you set up a 10-digit extension, it's not going to be. It will dial it'll dial any number. It can be a cell phone or whatever. So that's basically how that works. As far as the phones, they have to be VoIP phones, and I recommend getting I recommend the Grandstream. The GXP 1400, it's called, is a great phone. You can probably find one for under $50. It's a great deal. The Astra 6757i is a little bit nicer, costs a little bit more money, but I think this Grandstream's good for most scenarios. The only downside to it is you have to be near an Ethernet cable, because you have to go ahead and plug in the cable. If you're not going to be near somewhere where you can plug in the Ethernet cable, then you're going to want to get a wireless. What you can do is basically set up a hub and then have a mobile phone that you can put anywhere. Those phones are a little more expensive. Usually it's going to cost over $100. So for these 2 phones, I got them real cheap. This is actually, I just upgraded this one. It's a little more expensive, like it was over $100. But these 2 were both, this one was like 30 and this one was around 40 or something. They were really cheap. And so that's the basics of what we're going to be setting up. We're using Ring Roost to kind of actually design the PBX system. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks, guys. Alright, Taylor here, and today we're setting up a PBX system using Ring Roost. So right now we should have at least one SIP phone. Again, I recommend this GXP 1400. You can get it for around $50. Just Google it. It'll ship to you in a couple days. So now we need to set up our PBX system using Ring Roost and register our phones. So we're going to do that now. So go ahead and go to ringroost.com. I'm just going to create a test account. Use email, enter a password. Make sure you read the terms and conditions. I've read them. Now we'll be taken to our dashboard. So the first thing we actually need to do is get some phone numbers to show you real quick. This is an example of basically a phone system
how we build a phone system. But anyways, for now we're going to go to phone numbers, and I hope this is big enough. So by default, you have one free phone number. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more phone numbers, and you probably, depending on how many phones you're setting up, you probably want a phone number for each phone, but you don't have to have a phone number for each phone. So I've got a 704 number. I'm going to add a 918 phone number. So now I'll have 3 phone numbers. If I was really setting up my own system, I would get a system in my own area. But so I'm also going to just label these numbers line 1, line 2, just so I know which one's which and I don't get confused with them. Line 3. And we're going to need to E911-able them, but I'll show you how to do that at the end. So now back to our dashboard, we have our 3 phone numbers. Instead of using our default board, actually we will use our default board. I'll just rename this to my PBX. You can, if you want, you can create a new board, but you can also just use this. So you can already see the inbound phone. We have 1 inbound phone element set up. So I'm just going to pretend like we created a new board. Sorry, so let me save this. So this is what it would look like if you did create a new board and you're starting from scratch. So the first thing we need to do is drag and drop. Just a quick overview of this. What this is a it's a web-based software design tool. Oh, it's more than a design tool because it's basically being set up in real time. So the way it works is you basically just drag and drop various elements and bind them together. So the first element we need is an inbound phone element, and what this does is it basically takes calls from the traditional phone line. So if somebody dials this 919-659 number, it means, all right, it's going to come into our Ring Roost account, and this control is going to handle it. So we need to tell it where to go. In this case, we want to send it to our VoIP phone. We could also do something like send it to an options menu and say, like, how are you? And it would read a text and then bind it. But what we want for our PBX is to bind it to a VoIP phone. And I'm going to make this a little bigger in case you're having trouble seeing it. Let's see. And so this is going to be our first extension, extension 1. And now we're going to click Save. And from here, we need to register our, we need to use these credentials to register our SIP phone for this to work properly. So I'll show you how to do that.
Alright, so we're setting up the GrandStream GXP 1400 and we're going to register the phone with Ring Roost. So basically all we need from Ring Roost is 3 different credentials: the SIP host, the SIP username, and the SIP password. We're going to put this directly in the phone. You can actually do it directly through the GrandStream interface under config SIP credentials. We're actually going to just get the IP address of the phone, and GrandStream has a web interface so we can enter the IP address onto our computer and change the settings. So we're going to do it that way. To get the IP address, just go into config, network IP. It should show the IP address. I would recommend using DHCP protocol rather than a static IP. If you don't know what that means, just read the manual. You just got to set it to DHCP. The IP address should probably be something like 10.0.0.3, and you can type that right into your browser. The only thing about setting this phone up, it should be really intuitive. You just need to plug in the Ethernet cable and plug it in and turn it on. And then from there we will do this step of registering it on the SIP address. So now we're going to go.
We're registering our GrandStream GXP 1400 with this VoIP phone on Ring Roost. So the 3 things we need is this SIP host, this SIP username, and this password. Either open up a new tab or jot these down somewhere. So here we're going to type in the IP address of our phone, and you can get this right from your phone. I'm using DHCP, so it's something like 10.0.0.3. The default password for the GXP 1400 is simply admin, real secure, but that's the idea. It's not supposed to be initially. So the GXP actually allows us to register 2 accounts. We are going to just register the 1 account basically. So under the account name, this is what they're looking for, the SIP username. We're going to say SIP username, and here we also put the SIP user ID here, authentication ID here. I'm not sure what this name is, but we'll just put the username in there as well. Authentication password is going to be the password, and now everyone knows this password, so I'm going to have to change it. That's all right. And then for the SIP server, we are going to use ringroost.com. Use whatever you have as the SIP host. It should be the same. So, and that's all we need. So, account active, yes, and then click Save and Apply. The nice thing about the GXP 1400 is a lot of phones you have to reboot, but I don't think you do on this one. Then we'll go to Status. It looks like it says it's still not registered, but sometimes it takes just a second to load. You know, maybe it might have actually just rebooted. It's done something, but okay. Yeah, so now we have registered, and now we can make a call with the phone, and that should be all you need to do. So go ahead and test your phone out, make an outbound call, call a friend or something, make sure it works. Have them call you back. As long as you have this set up with your inbound phone the same as the caller ID, you could call somebody and they could call you right back. So it's as simple as that. With another type of phone, it's going to be a very similar setup. It'll basically be, you'll have to enter in some sort of SIP server, some sort of SIP username, and you'll have to save it and maybe restart the phone, no matter what type of phone you're on. So that's all there is to it. And after we register our first SIP phone, we're going to do the exact same thing with our other 2 lines. We're going to say line 2. Bind it to another VoIP phone. Click Save. And it looks like I accidentally named 2 lines line 2. So this should be line 3. And we'll go back to our dashboard, view edit. Make sure, okay, so we have 1 line, 1, 2, line 3. Now here's line 3. And again, we're going to connect the VoIP phone. And make sure you go through the same process of registering each SIP phone. If you only have 1 phone, then you're only going to have to do it once. But if you have more, you have to do it 3 times. And on these phones, make sure you have set up the caller extension 2 and 3, respectively. That way, when we pick up a phone and dial it, or that basically gives us the extension 1, 2, and 3. So from here, we have a basic PBX system working. Now, if we want to add, let's say that we want to make it so when a person calls in, they hear a voice prompt that prompts them to dial an extension. So now we're going to add an options menu, and we're going to say, please dial your party's extension or wait to speak to somebody. I can word it better, but that'll do for now. And this text to say means that the computer will actually read this back. You can also record your own recording, which you probably should do. You can set female or male and how many times it's going to play. So the way the options menu works is if they don't choose anything, this is the fall through. So I'm just going to, if they don't choose anything, we're going to fall through to line 1. Now let's say they do choose something. We have 3 extensions, so you need to go to Add Menu Item. And it looks like it's showing up a little bit strange, but we're going to say 1, 2, and 3. So now if they press 1, 2, or 3, we want to direct them to a particular extension. I'm going to have to zoom out so I can do this right. But so if they press 2, we want them to go to this extension. And rather than connecting this to the inbound phone, we actually just want to connect it directly to the VoIP phone. Otherwise, we actually have to traverse the call back through the PSTN phone lines. And the same thing with extension 3. And where's our other VoIP phone? There it is. And also with extension 1. So now we are all set up, and I'm just going to close this, just make it a little more organized, just so it's tidier here. 1, 2, 3, click Save Call System up top. And now whenever a call comes in, this will be red. If they press 1, 2, or 3, they'll be sent to the appropriate phone. All these VoIP phones can make outbound calls. So the last thing I want to show is how to set up a 911 phone number. So we just don't want to use extension, we just don't want to use this phone number, because when they call it, as the 911 number, because if somebody does call it, they're going to be led into this IVR system, which we don't want. We just want them to get direct line. So we're going to use this. We're going to use line. Oh, I guess that's line. Oh, so this should be extension 2. Yeah. Oh, I misnamed these. Line 1. So this should be line 2. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, that's the caller ID. So this phone, oh, that's the one other thing I failed to set properly. So this should be set to line 1 on the VoIP phone, so that the caller ID is correct. This should be set to line 2, and this should be set to line 3 for the caller ID. Now for the E911. I'm just going to save this and make sure we're right. So for the E911, we need to go back into phone numbers. We wanted to enable line 2. You're going to have to read this and agree to it. It basically lets you know that these E911 services aren't over the traditional phone lines. They're a type of VoIP service, basically. So I thought I clicked enabled. I understand and agree. And then enter in your address. I'm going to use the business. Oh wait, sorry. I'm going to use our business address. City, Charlotte, North Carolina 28226. Click verify and set E911 address. You should see this message that it's been saved. If your address doesn't work, it means the E911 service couldn't find your address, so you need to make sure that you have a E911 address. Almost all addresses should work. So ensure that you have the appropriate address in this area. Then go back to your PBX system, and you'll see for all these VoIP phones right now, they have this little 911X. You can see that. So within your VoIP phone, make sure that under Set 911 Caller ID, we have it set to line 2. This way, whenever if emergency were to happen, you were to pick this phone up and call 911, the 911 operator would see this number, which means they could call back, and they would also see the address you have. So we're going to change all these. We're going to do the same thing here. Set the same 911 extension. If you want, you can enable all 3 all 3 911 numbers separately. However, the 911 having a 911 number costs a little extra a month, so I would recommend just using one address, at least for every physical location that you have. Then we'll click Save Call System, and after you save it, you should see that this turned green 911 check. And the way to test these out is dial 933. Do not dial 911, but dial 933 rather. And you should hear someone reading back to you your address and the phone number, basically the E911 caller ID, and you're all 911 set up and good to go. So that's the basics of setting up a PBX. If you have any issues, just at any time you can just go to this Need Help thing. The support at Ring Roost, there's always support staff on that can help you out. So that's it.